I was just a simple crocheter until a millionaire ordered my work and changed my life forever. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow that felt charged with electricity. My hands trembled as I clutched the soft yarn, a comforting companion through my many sleepless nights. The clicking of my hook was a soothing rhythm, a dance that seemed to bring the chaos around me to a hush. But that day was different. When the doorbell rang, a rush of dread clenched my chest. It was a stranger. Tall, with piercing eyes that seemed to see through me. An air of mystery surrounded him. He spoke in a low, smooth voice, explaining he was a collector of rare art pieces. He wanted something bold, something unique. Something made by me. My heart raced. How did he know about my work? I glanced around my cramped living room, cluttered with half-finished projects and remnants of dreams that had no chance of taking flight. I had often dreamed of approval beyond my tight-knit circle of friends and family. But now, I was no longer just a simple crocheter. I was about to step into a world that felt impossibly grand and out of reach. He handed me his card, a gold-edged number that shimmered under the soft lighting. I held it tightly, my fingers tingling. With each passing second, I felt the weight of expectation rising. My insides twisted in a dance between fear and fierce hope. Who was this man? What wealth and power lay behind his casual demeanor? As conversation spun around us, vivid images danced in my mind. The luxurious showcases, the gallery filled with murmurs of admiration. Would my piece fit there? Would it be worthy? I remembered my late grandmother, who taught me to crochet, her warm hands guiding mine. Laughter filled the air as she encouraged my creativity. I could almost hear her words whispering, "You are destined for more." The man's eyes bored into me, waiting. My heart thudded like the sound of a crashing wave. Would I dare to step into that world, to risk everything for a chance of success? I took a deep breath, feeling that familiar lump in my throat. As I began to nod, a sudden question sprang to mind: what would happen to me if I failed? Would I lose the only comfort I've ever known? Would I disappoint my grandmother's memory? That thought was a knife in my chest. But his presence sparkled with possibilities, exciting and terrifying. My eyes darted back to his card. The golden edges seemed to glisten with secrets. Just then, before I could speak, I noticed something flicker in his eyes, a slight smirk that sent shivers down my spine. Was it excitement or something darker? I couldn't tell. Anxiety tightened my grip on the yarn, and I knew my answer lay just beyond the abyss. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air felt thick with uncertainty as I stared at the card. It shimmered in the diminishing light, a promise and a threat wrapped in a single piece of cardstock. I shook myself back to reality, yet the man's gaze made me feel like an actor on a stage, the spotlight not just illuminating me but scorching my skin. I am waiting, he said, the softness in his voice conflicting with the tension that knitted my brow. I opened my mouth, searching for the right words, but none came. My thoughts drifted. I saw myself returning to my small apartment, the fading walls adorned with my creations, the quiet but honest life I had built. But the lure of something grander tugged at my heart, igniting a flicker of ambition I had kept tucked away for far too long. What do you want from me? I finally blurted, my voice steady despite the tumult within. He stepped closer, the scent of cedarwood clinging to him like an aura. I want to discover your potential. Something inside you is waiting to be unleashed. A crochet piece that speaks more than mere stitches. Speak, I managed to say. Speak to whom? To a world that might spit me out? He didn't flinch. To those who dare to see, to those who appreciate uniqueness. Inspiration is everywhere, if only you let it in. With every word, the desperation in my heart swelled. I could feel threads of worry wrapping around me like a chokehold as a thought crept in. What if I am not enough? What if the vibrant spark he saw in me was an illusion, and I was merely a simple crocheter lost among pretentious artists? I could hear my grandmother's voice again, urging me to step forward, to embrace my creativity. But the weight of doubt tugged fiercely on my insides. I cast my eyes down, lost in the loops of my yarn, my constant companion. I didn't dare to look up again because I feared what I might see in that man's unwavering gazea smirk, perhaps, more filled with derision than admiration. I need time, I whispered, more to myself than to him. Time? He leaned back, crossing his arms, which deepened the lines of his brown jacket. Time is a luxury I cannot afford. The market is cutthroat, my dear. You've either got the confidence to seize the moment, or you'll fade into the background like yesterday's forgotten news. Choose wisely. Those words struck me with a harsh clarity, unraveling my resolve thread by thread. A million thoughts clamored in my mind, urging me to jump into the unknown, yet my feet felt cemented to the ground. Suddenly, the door behind me opened with a soft creak, and a familiar voice called out, "Hello?" "I'm home." It was Tara, my source of laughter and light in this dim world. I turned to see her stepping into the living room, oblivious to the ominous tension hanging in the air. She beamed at me, her dark curls bouncing with each step, and then her gaze flicked to the stranger. "Who's this?" she asked, her curiosity genuine. "I am just a collector," he replied smoothly, looking to appreciate some artistry. Tara's warmth enveloped the room, and I felt the contours of my heart shift slightly. She was the embodiment of unconditional love, and I couldn't let her see my turmoil. I smiled, but the mask felt painfully sundered beneath my skin. "An art collector?" Tara repeated with genuine intrigue. "I didn't know you were into that, Sophie." "Just a fleeting moment," I managed to say, my heart racing. I was contemplating an opportunity. A greatly exciting one. She encouraged, her enthusiasm a gentle tide against my feverish waves of fear. "You've always had a gift for this. Go for it. Don't hold back." But the collector's gaze bored into me, as if calculating my every reaction. "It's your only chance, Sophie," he urged softly enough that only I could hear. "You must decide before it's too late." In that moment, my heart thudded in my chest, a wild tempest of emotion swirling. What if Tara knew? What if she could see my conflict, the fear that gripped me? Would she, too, look at me with disappointment when I eventually faltered? My pulse quickened as I apprehensively tore my gaze away from the collector and turned it to Tara, who was still smiling at me, her faith unwavering. That flicker of hope nestled in my chest began to glow, but the shadow of anxiety loomed larger with every second. But before I could gather my thoughts, the collector's phone buzzed, breaking through the fragile silence. He answered and nodded, his expression shifting. "I have to take this," he said, stepping toward the door as measured as a cat stalking its prey. "Don't keep me waiting too long. You know where to find me. Remember, the clock is ticking." With that, he stepped outside, leaving a heavy void in his departure. Tara looked at me, her concern tinged with curiosity. "What was that about?" she asked, a gentle probing that felt like a soft caress against my frayed nerves. "You seemed distant." I shook my head, telling myself to swallow the knot in my throat. But before I could formulate a response, my phone chimed with a new message. I glanced down to see an unknown number, a simple text that shattered the fragile serenity. "Don't be late for the gallery opening. I know you have what it takes. And I've seen those pieces you haven't shown anyone." My breath hitched in my throat. Who was this? How did they know about my hidden works? "He's waiting for you, isn't he?" Tara said, her voice a soft whisper. Reality hung in the air, sharp and cold. Standing at the precipice, I felt the wind of change stirring around me, a yearning for more pulling me closer to the edge. The air between us bristled, electrified by the unspoken. Tara's eyes searched mine, a maze of concern and encouragement. I felt as if I stood under the beam of a light so bright that the shadows of my inadequacies shrank, yet loomed larger than ever in my mind. The buzz of my phone still echoed, a siren's call amid the whirlpool of thoughts dragging me under. Who was that? Tara pressed, the warmth of her presence wrapping around me like a soft shawl on a chill evening. I don't know, I stammered, my mind racing to formulate words that could articulate the chaos within me. Just a random number. Her brow furrowed, but she didn't push further, understanding that the depths of my struggle were woven intricately into my silence. I held the phone tightly, trying to shake the knot coiling deeper in my stomach, but it was futile. Why don't we get some tea? Tara suggested, her smile widening in an attempt to lighten the heaviness that hung around us. I'll make that herbal blend you love. It'll help you think clearer. Sure, sounds great. I forced a smile, but it didn't reach my eyes. As she drifted toward the kitchen, I felt my own smile falter into a frown, my mind wrestling with the implications of the cryptic message. In the quiet moments that followed, I stared at the door where the collector had left, imagining all the possibilities that lay just beyond it. I had often thought of what it would mean to be Ciento, have my creations appreciated not just as art, but as a struggling artist's soul poured out in yarn and stitches. Yet, in doing so, I risked exposing the frailty of who I truly was. Here you go, Tara returned, cradling 2 steaming mugs in her hands. The fragrant warmth danced around us like a comforting embrace. She handed me a cup, her touch gentle and familiar. Thank you, I whispered, taking a sip that burned slightly but felt grounding nonetheless. Are you okay? You seem off, she said, settling into the armchair opposite mine, her gaze steady and unyielding. I know something is bothering you. I could have taken a deep breath, cracked open the lyrics of my heart, and let the melody spill. But instead, I felt my mind retreat into the confines of fear, battling against the concept of vulnerability in the warm sanctuary we had built together. I'm just nervous, I admitted finally, guilt washing over me as I saw the worry etched on her face deepening. I want to take the opportunity with the collector, but what? She asked, her voice gentle but insistent, coaxing me forward. What if it's just a pipe dream? The confession slipped out, raw and unfiltered. What if I'm not ready? Or worse, what if I fail? Oh, Sophie, she said, her own vulnerability seeping into her tone, everyone feels that way at some point. Believe me. I worry about my music all the time, especially when I put myself out there. But it's the only way to grow. The only way to step into who we are meant to be. The comforting cadence of her words began peeling back the layers of my panic. It echoed through the hollowness of my heart, igniting a flicker of courage. Would it be so terrible to leap into the unknown? My grandmother always said, you won't know how high you can fly unless you spread your wings, I recalled, a faint smile tugging at my lips. It felt familiar and distant all at once, and yet, those words were a lifeline. Exactly, Tara chimed, her eyes sparkling with assurance. And you can always return to the ground if you need. Taught here will always be a place here for you. No, Tara, it's not just that, I said quickly, the panic returning with renewed vengeance. Something strange is happening. This message, I don't know who it's from, but they say they have seen my work, the ones I've hidden. Her expression shifted, surprise mingling with intrigue. What do you mean by that? How could anyone see something you haven't shared? I don't know. It's just it makes me feel exposed, I said, frustration gleaming in my eyes. Like someone is privy to my deepest insecurities. As I spoke, my grip tightened around the mug, the warmth seeping into my palms steadied me marginally. Tara raised an eyebrow, her curiosity piqued. What if it's a good thing? What if they see something special in you? You can't hide from greatness, Sophie, but her words only heightened my apprehension. I leaned back against the couch, the tension in my chest mounting again. If only I knew who it was. What if they're fake? More manipulation, another form of shattered hope. Just then, the phone buzzed again, shattering the moment. I hesitated, staring at it like a locked door. Tara moved closer, her interest fully captured. Open it, she urged, her enthusiasm breaking through my hesitation. With shaking hands, I clicked the message thread. A new text from the unknown number read, I know you fear being seen, but that fear is a doorway, Sophie. You have something the world needs. Meet me tomorrow at noon. Noon, I murmured, the weight of the world pressing against my chest. What does it say? Tara whispered, leaning over, her eyes wide with wonder. Typically an exuberant spark, a chill rushed through me instead. The unknown felt all-consuming, pulling me into a dark corridor of doubt. Tomorrow, they want to meet me, I admitted, the voice I had barely managed to steady quivering once more. But I don't know who they are or what their intentions could be. Tara's eyes widened in excitement, her grin attempting to lighten my trepidation. Then you have to go. This could be your chance. But even as I listened to her bubbling enthusiasm, despair lingered at the edges of my resolve. What if meeting this stranger unleashed a wave of vulnerability that swept me away? What if I lost myself entirely amidst the fear of not being enough? What if they see my work and think it's worthless? The words slipped out like shadows drifting into the light. I could sense Tara's heartache in the silence, and then softly, she said, "You have to define your own worth. Don't let someone else's opinion determine who you are. You're an artist, and that in itself is enough." But as she spoke, the walls inside me began to close in, the shadows of my insecurities pulling tighter around my chest. Confidence wasn't a garment I could simply put on, it was a long journey littered with battles. Would I succumb, or could I rise? Tara placed her hand on mine, grounding me in the moment, and I wished her faith could blanket my doubts. Certainly, this was a crossroad, with the spirit of my grandmother's wisdom flitting across my mind. Yet, just as I felt the catalyst for transformation dance on the edges of my grasp, a final message pinged through, one that sent a shiver coursing through me. I have what you need to succeed. Don't be late. My breath hitched. Could this stranger be the key to my dreams or the herald of deeper fears? In that moment, the weight of the path ahead tightened around my heart, spiraling me toward an unknown that sang a melody of both promise and peril. Would I find my wings only to discover the abyss beneath me? Or would I stay rooted, tethered to safety at the cost of my ambition? Caught between hope and trepidation, I gazed out the window into the gathering night, where stars flickered and battled the vast darkness, a mirrored reflection of my internal conflict. The night deepened, wrapping the world outside in a shroud of shadows, mirroring the turmoil roiling within me. I sat on the edge of my seat, the phone still buzzing in my hand, the dim light of the room flickering against the growing darkness, a simulation of the uncertainty constricting my heart. I can't believe this is happening, I murmured absently, the weight of the message pressing into my thoughts. It feels surreal. One moment, I'm just an artist, hidden behind closed doors, and the next, someone is reaching out to me promising what I've always dreamed of, what you've been waiting for. Tara responded softly, her eyes searching mine, illuminated by the soft glow of the lamp beside us. This might be the moment that changes everything for you. But you have to go, Sophie. You can't let fear steal this from you. Fear is all I know, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. It was the rhythm of my life, the constant chorus of hesitation drowning out the melody of possibility. I stood at the precipice of my own anxiety, torn between yearning and dread. Then take it with you, Tara said gently, her words like a balm. You don't have to pretend to be fearless. Allow your fear to walk beside you on this journey. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be human. Her insight required me to step beyond my comfort zone, not just embrace the fear, but to confront it head-on. I took a deep breath, wrestling with my own thoughts as I replayed the messages in my mind. The stranger had an energy that both intrigued and terrified me. What were their motives? Was it truly support, or was it something more sinister? As I pondered the unknown, Tara stood up and moved to the window, backlit by the moonlight streaming through the glass. You have something remarkable within you, she declared, her voice rising, echoing with conviction that sent ripples of warmth through my chest. You create from the core of your soul. That is the definition of art. This meeting could be the doorway you have been waiting for, yet those words seemed to disintegrate under the weight of my stifling doubts. I couldn't help but think about the weight of my past failures, the moments when creativity had slipped away, leaving me stranded in barren lands of criticism, both internal and external. Let's focus on tonight, Tara suggested, her tone shifting into something lighter, a gentle distraction from the storm swirling in my mind. She walked over to the couch, plopping down beside me with an infectious laugh. Tell me about your latest project. I want to hear about the new patterns you've been designing, and as I spoke about the hoses of colorful yarn and intricate schemes still trapped in my mind, pieces of hope ignited, and for a moment, I forgot about the weighty message and fears that loomed ahead. My heart swelled with warmth as I conjured images of vibrant patterns, each stitch snug with creativity and potential. Tara listened intently, her laughter spinning laughter and light into the cozy atmosphere, and for that brief interval, the shadows receded. But as my words faded, reality barreled back in, heavy like a summer storm. All at once, I felt so small, drowning in trepidation as I considered the possibility of tomorrow. What if I fail? I repeated once more, each hesitant word almost a mantra. What if I walk into that meeting and fall apart? What if I let you down? Tara's expression softened, her resolve astonishingly steady. You could never let me down by being your true self, she whispered, sincerity dripping from every syllable. It's not about what they think. It's about what you create. If they can't see the brilliance of your art, that doesn't change your worth or talent. You are enough, just as you are. A lump formed in my throat, the weight of her words drilling into the foundation of my fears and insecurities. What would it mean to trust that I was enough, to let my art speak on my behalf? For the first time in a long while, the foundation beneath the promise of tomorrow felt less like a cliff and more like solid ground. Suddenly, the phone vibrated violently on the table, the disruptive sound ripping through the moment we had cultivated. I glanced at the screen, my heart pounding as I hesitated, bracing myself for yet another unknown. It was another message from the same number, this time more urgent, compelling. Don't be late. It's not just about art, it's about your journey. Tomorrow will change everything, but only if you show up. A chill cascaded down my spine, the cryptic urgency threading through every fiber of my being. My mind raced with possibilities. Change everything? What could that even mean? Please, just tell me who you are, I whispered to the glowing screen, as if the device could somehow respond with clarity in a sea of uncertainty. I felt the world spin slightly, the tremors of the unknown clawing at the edges of my resolve. It's going to be okay, Tara said, her hand reaching out to squeeze mine, warm and affirming, tearing through the veil of isolation I often enveloped myself in. Whatever tomorrow brings, just know that you're not alone. I'll be rooting for you. As her words melded with my rising fear, I sensed a flicker of clarity cutting through the confusion, a fragile thread of hope within the chaos. Maybe facing the unknown wouldn't be so terrifying after all, not with Tara by my side. But just as I dared to breathe out the hollow remnants of comfort, the final door creaked open within me, the gnawing thought plaguing my mind crystallized into a hard truth. What if this cryptic meeting was the beginning of a long road fraught with unforeseen trials? What if the millionaire who wanted to see my work was someone who could mold my very existence, or even worse, shatter it irreversibly? The shadows of doubt loomed starkly beside the light of hope, each competing for my heart's allegiance. Tomorrow, I would have to choose which path to take. Would I step into the light of potential transformation or drown in the depths of my fears? With that question lingering in the air, the world outside faded into a blur, consumed by an uncertain night, leaving only flickering possibilities dancing in the long shadows of dawn. The morning arrived with an oppressive weight, as if the very air thickened in anticipation of the day ahead. Sunlight struggled to penetrate the layers of clouds overhead, casting a gray hue over everything. I stood by the window, staring out at the world that seemed to pulse with potential yet felt impossibly distant. Tara's absence in the room echoed, magnifying the loneliness gnawing at my soul. What if I'm not ready? I whispered to the empty space around me, the words flapping like a trapped moth desperate to escape. I shook my head, trying to dislodge the treacherous thoughts lodged tightly in my mind. It was too easy to slip into that familiar pit of self-doubt. Determined not to succumb, I turned to my crafting supplies, scattering yarn across the table like confetti, each skein a different shade whispering promises of creativity. As my fingers danced among the vibrant threads, I allowed myself a moment of solace, envisioning the masterpieces yet to be woven. Each fiber intertwined not just with color but with the essence of who I was, a simple artist yearning for recognition. Deep breaths. Just keep breathing. Ground yourself. After what felt like an eternity of preparation, I finally donned my favorite outfit, a colorful, woven sweater that felt like a warm hug against the world's chill. I placed the phone carefully into my pocket, the incessant buzz reminding me of the impending meeting. Today could change everything, I reminded myself, trying to summon every ounce of courage. Leaving the house, the wind made its own haunting music, howling around me as if to underscore the gravity of my steps. I turned the corner towards the cafe where the meeting was scheduled. The eclectic atmosphere created a stark contrast with my spiraling emotions. The scent of fresh coffee mingled with baked goods wafted around me, a reminder of life's simple pleasures. A soft bell chimed as I entered the cafe, announcing my arrival. I scanned the room for any sign of my mystery client, the unsettling mixture of anxiety and curiosity churning in my stomach. There he was sitting at a corner table, a brooding figure draped in an expensive coat, his presence commanding the space without effort. His eyes, sharp yet contemplative, locked onto mine, pulling me into the gravity of the moment. Before I could reinforce the fragile shield I had constructed, an inexplicable warmth washed over me, illuminating the lingering shadows of doubt. Like an electric current, his smile penetrated the barrier of my fears. He gestured for me to join him as if welcoming a long-lost friend into his embrace. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice smooth, somehow both formal and casual, equal parts authority and genuine curiosity. "I'm Edward." "It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Sophie." "Thanks for having me," I replied, forcing my gaze to meet his. An unexpected chill ran through me as I realized I was shaking both from nerves and the electric energy radiating between us. "I've seen your crochet work," he continued, leaning forward slightly, his expression earnest. "There's something uniquely beautiful about the way you express yourself through your art. I believe you have the potential to create something that resonates beyond mere decorations. It could be something that tells a story. My heart fluttered. "You've seen my work?" His nod was deliberate, adding weight to his words. "I have an idea for a collaboration that I think could resonate with a broader audience. But I want to delve deeper into your vision first. What brought you to that moment of creation? What are the emotions and ideas that compel you?" Eager yet hesitant, I began to pour out my thoughts, weaving my narrative as intricately as the yarns I cherished. With every word, I shared not only my passion but pieces of my soul. A vibrant connection blossomed, dissipating the lingering tendrils of fear that had chased me into the cafe just as I began to picture a future where my art could flourish beyond the confines of my studio. The cafe door swung open, and a familiar figure strode in. My heart dropped. It was Claire, my former mentor and a person I believed I had outgrown. But as she approached, the determination in her eyes cut through the fog of hope. "Sophie," she called out, her voice piercing the bubble of excitement I had momentarily enjoyed. "There you are. I've been looking for you." "Claire, what are you doing here?" I managed, a hollow echo laced in my words. Confusion danced in my chest as dread settled in my stomach. My heart sank at the thought of her potential influence on this fleeting moment of opportunity. "Let's talk," she insisted, a sharp edge in her tone that left little room for argument. "We need to discuss how you've been handling your art in this meeting." Of all things, Edward's gaze shifted between us, absorbing the tension, his interest sparked but his charm unwavering. "Well, continue in a moment," he said with an air of authority that stopped Claire in her tracks. "Hold on, you don't know what I do know," Edward interjected, the calm conviction in his voice silencing Claire's protests. "And I believe Sophie deserves the space to explore her own path without influence or judgment." His words hung in the air as I stood suspended between gratitude and desperation. A flicker of warmth ignited within me, flickering through the smothering fears, urging me to seize this moment. But doubt clawed at my gut, making me question if I could trust this new path and if I could leave the past behind. Just as clarity began to surface, a flash of recognition crossed Claire's face, igniting a fire in her eyes. "You don't know who you're dealing with," she warned Edward, her voice laced with a warning. "You don't understand her struggles. Sophie has always been fragile." Before I could process or react, Edward turned to me, his expression now a mixture of concern and curiosity, leaving me standing at the crossroads of revelation. The looming question of who I truly was hung heavily as I grasped for my words, straddling the line between a supportive future and the suffocating weight of the past. What if everything I had built within myself could still come crumbling down? In that moment, uncertainty wrapped itself around me like a shroud, obscuring the blind path ahead. Is it true?" Edward's eyes locked onto mine with sudden intensity, each heartbeat echoing like a drum, urging me to answer. Do you feel that way? My heart raced as I faced the haunting question, the room alive with an electric energy that felt both promising and perilous. The unfolding truth dared me to confront the chains of doubt, pressing me to take a leap even as darkness threatened to swallow the light. In that timeless second, I was no longer sure if I was ready to reveal my innermost self or if I would allow this moment to slip away, buried beneath layers of uncertainty and fear. As I opened my mouth to respond, the air felt charged with possibility. Would I voice my story, even if it terrified me? The cafe air grew thick and charged, the kind of tension that coiled tightly around every shared glance and unspoken word. My mind raced, a vortex of thoughts swirling chaotically. What had Claire meant by fragile? Did that description fit me, or was it merely her attempt to belittle my potential? Could I stand up against her, even in this moment, with Edward's unwavering gaze urging me on? I took a deep breath and opened my mouth, the weight of what I was about to say cloaked in the fear of vulnerability. I don't know if I am fragile, I finally managed, my voice barely above a whisper. But I do know that I've been afraid. Afraid of not being good enough, of letting others down. I put so much pressure on myself to create something meaningful but ended up paralyzed at times, feeling like I didn't belong. Claire scoffed softly, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, the skepticism pouring off her like an icy breeze. This is exactly what I warned you about. You have to be strong, Sophie. You can't just flounder around under the expectations of others. You have talent, but talent can only carry you so far without discipline. Edward shot Claire a sharp look, clearly unimpressed by her attempts to undermine me in front of him. Sophie is figuring out her path, Claire. And sometimes that path involves facing the darker parts of ourselves. His words wrapped around me like a comforting blanket, and a glimmer of defiance sparked within me. Yes, the shadows were intimidating, but they were also part of my journey. I met Claire's penetrating gaze head-on, refusing to back down. Maybe I do need guidance, but I also need space to find who I am without someone else's shadow looming over me. I want to make art that matters to men, not just art that meets expectations. The flicker of surprise in Edward's eyes showcased he understood the gravity of what I was finally expressing. It was not merely about art, it was about reclaiming my identity. Just when I thought clarity might break through the obsidian clouds of doubt, Claire's defense took its own shape, rising like the smoke from the coffee cups that littered the tables around us. Sophie, she began, her tone shifting to something more manipulative, you can't let the thrill of attention cloud your judgment. This is someone who has connections, and don't you think that maybe they'll just use you and throw you away when they're done? If I'm used, that's my failure. But what if I could create something incredible? I countered, a surge of resolve pushing me onward. What if I could trust in my ability to shape my own narrative? I can't keep letting fear dictate my choices. I need to try. Will trying be enough, though? Claire challenged, her arms dropping to her sides, her eyes searching mine. How will you cope when the reality of competition and failure looms over you? It's much easier to crawl back to comfort than it is to face rejection. Edward leant back in his seat, crossing his arms, a quiet observer in our escalating interaction, though his presence provided an anchor amidst the rising tide of emotions. I could sense he wanted to step in, but this was my battle, my moment. I took another deep breath, the scent of freshly ground coffee wafting through the air acting as a temporary balm. No one starts strong, Claire. I've been learning that strength is built over time, through mistakes and failures. And I need you to understand this isn't just about being an artist for me anymore, it's about being whole. A long silence enveloped the table, stretching painfully as Claire searched for a comeback, her disappointment and frustration palpable. But instead of deflecting, I felt something shift within me. I want to pursue my own vision. I've spent too long trying to fit into a mold that was never meant for me, I continued, determination drawing strength from a newfound source deep within. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Claire turned her gaze away, her posture visibly deflating. I just want what's best for you, Sophie. I don't want to see you hurt. But if you feel like you need to break away, I do, I confirmed. Softly, yet firmly, the resolve burning bright in the pit of my stomach. Before Claire could respond, Edward leaned forward, his expression resetting the dynamic. If you're considering this opportunity, Sophie, There's no doubt in my mind that you will face challenges. But you won't face them alone. He reached across the table, his hand hovering just above mine, seemingly waiting for permission to connect. My heart jolted at the gentleness behind his words, a contrast to Claire's harsh truths. You have the courage within you, and I sense that. Look, there's something special about your art, he pressed on, his belief in me shining brighter than the morning sun breaking through the clouds outside. The corner of my mouth creased upward, but then the door swung open again, interrupting the moment. This time, the woman who entered was older with striking silver hair cascading down her shoulders, eyes darting across the cafe until they landed on me. She wore a long coat that swirled around her, giving her an ethereal appearance. Sophie Seabrook. She called out, her voice full of urgency. I've been looking for you. I froze, my body turning rigid at the unexpected interruption, my heart pattering nervously against my chest. The world around me dimmed as I felt an unsettling energy radiating from her, the confidence I'd finally mustered suddenly frail in its presence. Who are you? I asked hesitantly, as the gravity of her insistence weighed heavily upon me. I am your grandmother, she declared, each word like the sound of a distant bell tolling, silencing the conversations around us. And I need you to come with me. There's something you must know. My world tilted, the tapestry of my life unraveling in a single breath. As Claire and Edward stared at me, their expressions mirroring my shock, I was thrown into uncharted territory, each heartbeat echoing louder than the last. What did she mean, and how had she found me? The potential for hope and despair collided, leaving me dangling at the edge of an overwhelming cliff. Sophie's heart thundered in her chest, a collision of emotions rising like storm clouds threatening to break overhead. The vibrant cafe faded into a blur, the color of each wall receding as I stared into the face of a woman who, despite the passage of time, carried pieces of my own features. It were the eyes, deep and knowing ones I had only seen in faded photographs passed down through generations. The familiar contours of her face triggered an avalanche of unanswered questions that had lain dormant in the recesses of my mind. Your grandmother? Claire echoed, skepticism tracing her voice like a jagged edge. You're telling me you didn't know? No, I managed, my voice trembling as I turned back to the woman who had just stepped into my life uninvited. I don't understand. How did you find me? I've searched for you ever since your mother. Her voice trailed off, and the weight of buried secrets hung between us thick as fog. There's so much we need to explain, but it's not safe to talk here. Trust me, please. Her words flowed over me in rippling waves, both enticing and frightening. I looked to Edward, who remained still, the intensity of his gaze lending me strength. Claire's demeanor had changed, her arms now wrapped tightly around herself, as if my grandmother's arrival had raised the stakes of our unfolding drama to an unbearable pitch. "Two don't know you," I whispered, almost pleading, desperate for a grasp on the reality that was unraveling like a loose thread on a fraying tapestry. My past felt like an unfinished story, notes scattered across the pages. Then let me help you find your way back, my grandmother urged, her voice low, almost melodic. There's a legacy waiting for you, Sophie, and it ties back to art, to our family. It's why I've come. A legacy? The word rippled through me, igniting a flicker of hope within the depths of uncertainty. For so long, my identity as an artist had felt fragile, like glimmering glass that could shatter at the slightest pressure. But what if there was more? What if my narrative was connected to a larger story, one that encompassed vibrant brush strokes of talent and history? What do you mean, family? I managed to ask, my throat dry. As I spoke, the cafe became more than just a backdrop, it transformed into a theater alive with the echoes of long-lost tales, waiting to be shared under the right light. There are things. She hesitated, glancing around as if the shadows themselves might eavesdrop on our conversation. Things that can't be said in public. Will you come with me? It's important. I could scarcely keep up with the whirlwind of revelations that sprang unbidden before me. A lifetime of unanswered questions surged to the surface, questions I'd never fully comprehended. The warmth of Edward's gaze offered sanctuary, yet a storm brewed behind my eyes. Should I seize this unexpected encounter, or should I cling to the life I had built, however fragile it may seem? Yes, I said, the word emerging from some subterranean place within me, lit by the flickering promise of discovery. I'll go with you. Without a second thought, I stood, my decision a leap into the unknown. Claire's brows knitted together in an expression of disbelief, while Edward's soft encouragement lapped at my confidence like gentle waves lapping a shoreline. Maybe I wasn't just stepping away from my present, but moving toward a richer tapestry of existence woven with color and complexity. As I followed my grandmother out of the cafe, the air shifted, crackling with electric potential. Time seemed suspended, each fleeting moment stretching into eternity. What awaited me was shrouded in mystery, yet inside me, a budding sense of possibility blossomed, a fragile yet tenacious bloom in a garden once overshadowed by self-doubt. Outside, the world hummed around us, cars rushing past as if none were aware of the crucial crossroads I had just crossed. My grandmother walked a few steps ahead, her long coat billowing like a cloak of mystery, the familiar shadows from my family history pulsating around us. Suddenly, a thought struck me with the force of lightning. "What did you mean about art?" I called after her, my voice rising above the hum of the city. "What does it have to do with our family?" She paused, turning slightly, an enigmatic smile playing at the corners of her lips. "You'll see, my dear. But be prepared, not all of our history is filled with light." My stomach twisted at the implications of her words, trepidation gnawing at my insides. What shadows lurked in the corners of our legacy? Could those shadows taint the very canvas I was seeking to paint my life upon? As we walked side by side, the distance between us shifted, gradually unraveling the gap created by years of absence. I felt the tendrils of connection brushing against my spirit, they were delicate yet resolute. Each step felt laden with the promise of understanding as we ventured into uncharted territory. But just as I thought a glimpse of clarity might emerge, my phone buzzed unexpectedly. I fished it out of my pocket, a sense of dread pooling in my chest at the name flashing on the screen. A message from Claire: "I hope you know what you're doing. The past doesn't just vanish, and legacy can sometimes come with a price." My heart sank, the warning reverberating in my mind like a haunting echo, a shadow cast over this budding possibility as the weight of my grandmother's truth loomed ahead, exhilarating yet perilous. As I slipped the phone back into my pocket, the emotional torrent inside me grew stronger, melding with the darkness and glitter of potential ahead. Ahead of me lay the unknown, a chasm filled with shadows and light, warmth and trepidation. I was no longer just a simple crocheter finding my way, I was stepping into a tempest where life, artistry, and family tangled into a treacherous dance. And as the doors of opportunity creaked open wide, I held my breath, preparing for whatever storm awaited on the other side. The chill in the air bit at my skin, each gust an unwelcome reminder of the outside world as I walked alongside my grandmother. The sound of heels clicking against the pavement accompanied our tentative bond, both foreign and familiar. I didn't dare to look back, fearing the solidity of my previous life would dissolve like mist before the sun's rays. The city thrummed with life around us, but inside, I felt distant, adrift in a sea of confusion and anticipation. I had followed her on a thread of curiosity and desire for clarity, but my mind was a storm of unanswered questions. As we neared a tall building nestled between two towering structures, I stole a glance at my grandmother. Her expression was a mosaic of wisdom and sorrow, hinting at untold tales buried under layers of silence. Inside, the lobby was warmly lit, its elegance profound, and it served as a stark contrast to the emotional turmoil boiling within me. My grandmother led me through a corridor lined with portraits of artists and their masterpieces, each frame a testament to creativity, suffering, and resilience. Many of our ancestors were painters, sculptors, she began, her voice softening. But they also faced unimaginable trials. Art became both refuge and weapon for them, just as it is for you. A flicker of recognition sparked in me as I realized the weight behind her words. This was more than a legacy of talent. It was a lineage woven with pain, strength, and triumph over adversity. My fingers brushed against the cold frame of a painting, a swirl of colors melded with chaotic brushstroke striking an emotional chord deep within my heart. "Can I become part of this?" I asked, cheeks heating as I faced my grandmother. "Can I carry this legacy forward?" Her expression grew solemn. "It's a gift, but it's not without its burdens. It demands resilience. There are stories that must not be forgotten." As she spoke, the ominous weight of those stories thickened the air around us, like the fog I had felt earlier. This was more than a conversation about talent, It was a delicate dance around painful truths waiting to be unveiled. Before I could pose further questions, she gestured toward a small room off the main hallway, adorned with art supplies strewn about, a stark reminder of creativity in motion. This was where your great-grandfather worked. He painted every day, even when life was unbearable. Something in her tone beckoned me closer, as if she were inviting me into the folds of our family history. I stepped inside, inhaling the scent of turpentine, one that felt both nostalgic and foreign. The walls were adorned with unfinished paintings, fragments of ideas captured mid-breath, echoing a lifetime of passion and purpose. Art was their voice, she murmured, joining me. And sometimes it helped bury the pain of their past, sometimes it resurrected it. A shiver skittered down my spine, and I caught a glimpse of a particular canvas dominating the back wall. It was half-finished, raw and powerful, evoking emotions that swirled tumultuously in my own heart, a labyrinth of anguish and hope. Why didn't anyone tell me? I choked out, almost drowning in the enormity of it all. Why was I raised with so little knowledge of our family? Fear protects, Sophie, she answered softly. Your mother wanted to shield you from the shadows that haunted us. It's a cycle that repeats, but now it's time for you to reclaim your narrative. As her words sank in, a simmering anger ignited within me. But in doing so, doesn't it also mean facing those shadows? Each question hit the air like the crack of thunder, reverberating off the walls around us. She nodded, the weight of regret heavy in her gaze. Yes, it's necessary to confront our history to understand it, or it will continue to cast its shadow over you. I felt an unexpected wave of grief, understanding how much my mother had sacrificed to protect me, and yet beholden to the injustices woven into our lineage. Did I want to dig into the soil of our history, to unearth secrets and lies threatening to choke my existence? Before I could voice my next thought, my phone buzzed again, this time more insistent. I hesitated, the nagging urge to ignore it warring with my curiosity. But the shimmering screen beckoned. The sender was unknown. With faltering fingers, I opened the message, dread creeping down my spine as I read the words, I know what you're doing, Sophie. You can run, but the past will always find you. Panic seized me, my heart racing wildly. What did this person know? As I scrambled to interpret the implications of the message, anger boiled over within me suddenly. Facing the shadows didn't feel like a choice, but an inescapable battle. My grandmother stepped closer, gripping my shoulder with surprising strength. You must be careful, she said softly. There are those who will do anything to keep the truth hidden. This, she gestured toward the room, is just the beginning. I swallowed hard. The fragile filament of hope I had clung to trembled, battered by the realization that every step forward could unveil a consequence I couldn't predict. As I turned to face her fully, her eloquence softened, revealing vulnerabilities I now recognized as my own. Are you ready to face it? She asked, the weight of legacies heavy in the air. Beneath the swell of anxiety, I felt a flicker of courage igniting within me. I could no longer sit idly by, waiting for my past to creep into the present. It was a daunting thought, but I had no other choice. More than ever, I replied, a tremor creeping into my voice. As I pushed the uncertainty aside, another message chimed in with a startling Clarissa promise of confrontation lurking just beyond the horizon. The abyss of my family's past had opened wider, and I stood teetering on the edge, where light met shadow. Would I dare to plunge in, to discover the truth tangled within the legacy? Would I emerge transformed or irretrievably broken? As the thought wrestled in my mind, the uncertainty consumed me, a tempest of emotion swirling as the line between past and future blurred. The walls of the room felt as though they were closing in on me, the air thickening with the weight of unasked questions and unspoken fears. The lingering intensity of my grandmother's gaze was grounding yet unnerving. Memory seemed to unfurl within me, fluttering like the pages of a book left too long unread. I need to know more, I whispered, barely able to voice the determination lifting from the pit of my stomach. This was no longer just curiosity, it had morphed into a necessity. Very well, she replied, a tremor of apprehension lining her words. But understand that the truths you seek might not be the ones you expect. The past we bury has a way of evolving into something we can't control. Her mention of control struck a chord, an echo from deep within me. Was I ready to relinquish the grip on my past and the illusory safety it provided? The strangest part was the flicker of exhilaration that danced at the edge of my trepidation. Just as I opened my mouth to respond, the door swung inward to reveal a woman I had never met, but her presence felt inexplicably tethered to me. She had wild, untamed curls that cascaded down her shoulders, and her eyes bore a weight that hinted at countless stories left untold. "Excuse me," she said, her voice steadier than her demeanor suggested. "I saw you both enter. Who are you?" I asked, my suspicions flaring. "I'm Elena, your great-grandfather's last apprentice." The revelation crashed over me, making my earlier shock seem trivial. "I'd been waiting for the moment someone from the family would return to these spaces," she continued, stepping into the room as if she were reclaiming something lost. "What do you mean?" I inquired, intrigued despite the lingering caution that dripped from my voice. "Your great-grandfather was a man of great vision but also fierce demons. I was young, not particularly valued, but he took me on when no one else would. He believed in art, Sophie, like a believer in faith, not fearing the darkness that surrounded him." As she spoke, I exchanged a glance with my grandmother, a mix of surprise and unease clouding her features. "Why haven't we heard from you before?" my grandmother asked, seemingly taking charge. "Because I didn't think it would matter," Elena replied, a buried sadness weaving through her words. "Your family has kept secrets, silenced voices that needed to be heard. I left because I wanted to escape the shadows, those that plagued your great-grandfather and too often spilled into his work." My pulse quickened as her story began to weave itself into the fabric of my own questions. "So you know about the paintings? Why he couldn't finish them?" A poignant silence hung between us before Elena nodded. "He had too many parts of himself in those strokes. I watched him unravel as he sought to capture something beautiful while battling the ghosts of loss and regret. But his talent was undeniable. It was powerful enough to haunt anyone who stood in its presence." A sharp intake of breath echoed in the room. "Does that power still exist?" I asked, the words escaping me before I could consider their implications. "Could it still affect our family?" Elena's eyes held a flicker of admiration mixed with despair. "Oh, it does. I felt it when I was in this space. It's a double-edged sword." As the conversation thickened with tension, my own questions about legacy began to surface once more. Can I still create? Can I reclaim this power? My voice trembled, but I fought to infuse strength into my inquiry. "Yes, but be warned," Elena leaned closer as if sharing a secret. "It doesn't come without a price. You must be prepared to face the fragments of your family's past, and not every piece will fit neatly into place." Absorbing her words, I felt a swell of mixed emotions, a cocktail of hope and fear brewing within me. "What if I can't handle it? What if it breaks me?" "Then you must learn to rebuild," she said firmly, her eyes meeting mine with ferocity. "This journey is not for the faint of heart, but remember, Sophie, you have the strength within you. It's what your ancestors have fought for." The truth of her words sliced through me, igniting a flame of determination I hadn't realized I possessed. As I considered her invitation to embrace not just art, but the maze of familial legacies, another message vibrated against my thigh, jarring me from my thoughts. This time, I opened it with trembling fingers, each tap on the screen feeling like a countdown to impending chaos. "You think you can escape? I know where you are." Panic flashed through me, a visceral response that had me gasping for breath. My mind raced, heart pounding as the gravity of the unknown pressed down heavily around me. "Who is it? Who's sending these messages?" I managed to ask, feeling exposed and vulnerable. Elena's brows knitted together, the concern etched deep into her expression. "It could be someone who knows about your family's history, someone who wants to keep those shadows buried." My grandmother wrapped an arm protectively around me, offering a semblance of safety. I was no longer just a curious girl exploring her heritage. I was a target, a reluctant heir to secrets that seemed intent on hunting me down. With the weight of the past threatening to engulf me, I cast one last look at the unfinished paintings on the walls, raw with possibility yet burdened by the shadows of their origins. Would they resonate differently now, each stroke revealing how tangled my life had become? A wave of resolve washed over me, pulling me toward confrontation, toward the deeper understanding I desperately needed. But as that flicker of courage built towards action, the air felt electric with dang air, a warning that the moment of truth was always one heartbeat away. The battle for my family's legacy loomed ahead, more perilous than I could have ever anticipated, and I was left standing at the brink, heart pounding, feeling the pull of shadows threatening to cascade into my life, waiting for the inevitable plunge. The weight of uncertainty pressed down on me like a crushing wave as I faced the crossroads of my identity and legacy. I gazed into my grandmother's eyes, seeking reassurances, but found only the reflection of my own fears mirrored back at me. "They found me," I murmured, my voice trembling as the realization settled deeply within me. These shadows were no longer distant specters, they were hunting me in earnest. I was not merely stepping into the legacy of artists but was entwined in a web of secrets that escalated my heart's rhythm to an alarming pace. Elena's voice broke through my spiraling thoughts. "We have to move. The past has a way of closing in." Without hesitation, she ushered me toward the exit, her urgency palpable as she pulled me away from the remnants of my great-grandfather's world. I glided toward the door, my heart racing as we stepped into the crisp air outside. The city loomed bright and busy around me, but it felt surreal, the colors dancing between shades of reality and uncertainty. "What do we do now?" I asked, taking a deep breath, grounding myself amid the rising tide of anxiety. My grandmother gripped my shoulder. "We confront it, not just the past, but what's coming for you." "But what if I can't fight it?" The question tumbled from my lips, laced with fear, but even as I spoke, deep inside, I felt a flicker of defiance igniting. "You're stronger than you think," Elena said. "Drawing from our past gives you a unique power. It's time to reclaim what's yours." The determination in her words rang true, and despite the layers of fear whispering doubts, something began to settle within me. I refused to be a pawn in someone else's game, nor would I let the shadows of my family loom larger than my own potential. As we walked, Alejandro's words echoed in my mind like a haunting mantra, and I took a moment to gather myself. "But where do we even start?" My breath caught as I glanced at my grandmother's steely resolve. "You already have the answer within you, Sophie," she replied, turning steadily toward me with encouraging eyes. "You live and breathe your craft, and that alone is a vessel of truth. It's time to tell your own story." With renewed purpose, I nodded, rallying the courage that coursed through my veins. Facing my fears head-on felt formidable but invigorating, the spark of possibility inching toward a flame. We walked a little farther until we came upon an open plaza buzzing with life, artists displaying their wondrous works, each brushstroke and crochet piece seeming to mutter an invitation. "We can draw strength from those willing to embrace the craft," Elena said, her fingers trailing along a display of vibrant textiles. "Surround yourself with creativity. This moment will steal what isn't yours if you let it, but it will also propel you forward if you take hold." I paused, my gaze lingering on a colorful tapestry hung on a nearby wall. Each section captured a momentous narrative stitched together by threads of emotion and pain. I felt tears prick at my eyes, the weight of inspiration clamoring as a sense of kinship burgeoned in my chest. If I was to face the past, I would need the courage to embrace the fragments of my own story, no longer fearing how each could unravel. Suddenly, the insistent vibration of my phone shattered the moment as a new wave of dread washed over me. Hesitantly, I pulled it out and saw yet another message flood my screen. "I know you're close, Sophie. Don't think you can hide from the truth forever." My heart sank as icy tendrils of fear wrapped around me, but they were soon ignited by a surge of realization. I had become the author of my own fate, and no longer confined to the pages of someone else's story. "Show me," I murmured to my companions, the urgency undeniable. "Show me everything." They both nodded, understanding rumbling beneath the surface. "We need to locate the truth woven into your great-grandfather's art, the unfinished tapestries that might hold the key," Elena stated with conviction, urging me forward. As I moved, the weight in my chest shifted, giving way to a sense of purpose. We ventured deeper into the city, retracing steps steeped in familial history while navigating the layers of my own burgeoning narrative. With every word exchanged and every brushstroke revealed, I began to piece together not just the history of my ancestors, but my own story, full of creativity, resilience, and authenticity. Stepping into untamed territories of connection and expression unleashed a fire deep within me, fueling a determination that burned brightly against the shadows. Upon reaching a small gallery showcasing the work of my great-grandfather, my breath caught in my throat as I gazed at the staggering collection of paintings. Each canvas revealed a fragmented taliance, hidden emotions dripping with vulnerability, a testament to my family's complex legacy. Here, Elena pointed, standing before a particular piece, one that resonated with raw power, overflowing with swirls of anguish and joy. Believe me, this holds the connection you seek. The colors pulsated against my heart, coaxing me closer until I was enveloped in a familiar warmth. My fears seemed to manifest around the edges of that canvas, drawing energy from its essence, providing me with the fortitude to confront the embodiment of my lineage. It was in that moment of stillness I felt a connection that transcended time and space. This wasn't just a painting, it was the foundation of roots buried deep within me, embracing the beautiful imperfections of creativity and existence. I closed my eyes and visualized the questions I longed to ask. What battles had my ancestors fought? What scars adorned their spirits? More importantly, how could I harness that struggle into strength? With newfound determination, I clamored to articulate the stories I hoped to convey. They were painters, much like you, my grandmother reassured softly, the comfort of her presence spilling over me as I stepped to the brushstrokes, each movement of my fingers tracing the energy pulsing through the fibers of the canvas. You're stepping into their legacy and revealing your own in the process. The weight of my history bore down upon me. The shadows lurked, yes, but also an understanding that had manifested through pain and hope. At that moment, the connection between the past and present illuminated possibilities beyond imagination. Just as clarity emerged from chaos, my phone buzzed frantically once more, but this time I was no longer fearful. I opened it, defiance shining in my heart as I read that same threatening voice whispering my name. You think you can take their power? You have no idea what true darkness awaits. As I locked eyes with my grandmother, I grappled with the implications of surrendering to fear. No more. I would not succumb, not now that I had found my voice. With a fierce determination, I typed back, addressing the shadows lurking just beyond my reach. You underestimate me. I am stepping into my own light. Your darkness no longer holds power over me. I hit send. The uncertainty hung in the air, a slight tremor clenching my stomach, but also a newfound empowerment simmering beneath the surface. This was more than merely a response, it was an assertion of my narrative, a declaration that I would reclaim my story, even if that story ran parallel to confrontations I had yet to face. And as the reply settled into the digital ether, illuminating the barriers I had previously allowed to contain me, my ancestors' strength surged within me like an unwavering tide. They won't stop coming, Elena warned quietly, her gaze piercing into me as reality began to settle in. This darkness follows your family like a shadow, Sophie. I nodded, absorbing her words, but for the first time, they felt less daunting. Then let them come, I replied, my own voice steady. I will meet this darkness equipped with the stories of my past and the colors of my art. I turned back to my grandmother, the weight of legacy shifting into a buoyancy, spurring forth the tapestry of my own expression, knitting together my truths. It's time to create the stories that represent not only the past but the future I will forge. Together, we traversed the spectrum of shadows and colors, ready to meet whatever awaited us amidst family secrets and artistic revelations. As we stepped into that storm, the connections between my family and me lit a path ahead, an exploration into the unknown, and an unwavering belief that I had the power within to rise above, ready to spread my wings and embrace the beautifully complicated genesis of my own unique story. Life may present its challenges, but I was no longer a simple crocheter, I knew now who I was. As I took a step into my destiny, my voice broke the silence, I am enough, and my art will not be silenced. The echoes of creativity glimmered bright ahead, illuminating the shadows with every careful stitch and vibrant brushstroke along the way. Each breath I took resonated with the stories woven into the tapestry of my existence, inviting me into a future I had yet to create, a legacy of my very own.